The other day, I posted Magic Kingdom short. It was the Magic Kingdom you remember is gone. What changed? And at the end of the day, the Magic Kingdom your kids will remember isn't yours. The Magic Kingdom you probably experienced today isn't the Magic Kingdom that you experienced a decade ago, much less 5 years ago. And so it requires planning. And so while the problem may be sentimental at times and we may get nostalgic or so, it's more so making sure that you set up the right planning in place so that way you can have the best experience possible at the parks. Um, the park, a lot of parents book. They book a park based off of their experiences. But if they're gonna park, hop, and have that experience in 26, 27, and 28, um, it shouldn't be based off of the park that's in their memory. So it's not really taking away from the sentimental aspect. It's more so turning good trips into the best type of trips possible rather than ending up with sentimental ones. So I'm Rolando. I'm with Deep Arrival, and this is the Deep Arrival Detour series. It's one topic, and we go on it for about 15 minutes, completely unscripted, as you can see. Um, and I think you'll find out that the first instance of this actually didn't run well. I had created another version of this exact topic and apparently had my microphone on mute. So this isn't entirely unscripted, believe it or not, right? but uh, but it definitely will roll a little bit different than that first instance. That's not lost in perpetuity. But yeah, so this episode is really to just walk through what's actually happening at Magic Kingdom right now, what it means if you're planning a trip in the next 2 to 3 years, and really looking at a review of it, not just a rant, more so the recipe or the receipt, of what we're looking at. And so, if you remember riverboats, Tom Sawyer Island and Splash Mountain, right? That feels like the other day, really. You're basically looking at an experience that's still in 2020, with Splash Mountain, but still very iconic in how we see Magic Kingdom and how we experienced Magic Kingdom and what that meant to us, what that meant to our memories and our experiences with our parents. And so, it's kind of sad because you realize that you may have lost an experience with your kids or with your significant ones to have um an experience at Splash Mountain, or you may not have been able to do that, and other rides, with the people that you care about. And so, there's a little bit of nostalgia that's there, but at the same time, the park is always changing. And um the largest footprint loss in the park's history was really when there was that change to, effectively the Tom Sawyer Island area. I believe that was um, early last year, more so July 6th, 7th of 2025 or so, when that shift happened, the Rivers of America shift. And so the reality of it is those things aren't bad. Albeit, you go to the park and you see construction walls going up here and there, but that's always something that, kind of lives in the parks, breathe in the parks, and you just have to have a set of expectations that is measured. So that way you go into it really understanding that the experiences are much more so than ride based experiences. I think one thing that you think through is a lot of people see, how do you say, theme parks as sort of a ride based, experience that they're headed towards. And that's really can't be what a trip is about when you're thinking of Disney. Disney is a storytelling park. It's a theme park that lives within its IP. It lives and breathes it. And we're fortunate enough that the last couple of years or so, I'd say the last couple decades, actually, maybe, they've had success with certain IP and then been able to leverage that IP and place it within the parks. And as a result of that, now we're fortunate enough to be able to see these things sort of come to fruition, with Cars Land and the Villains Land. And imagine they have so many villains that they have their own land. And then, we saw what was replacing it. You seen Tron, Tiana, Piston Peak, which is what that Cars Land now is, Villains Land. They've done a couple of the villain show in Hollywood studios, and that's a great experience if you haven't done it. And I think Villains Land is gonna be somewhere around 2030, so it'll be a bit of time before we get there. But in the meantime, you see what they've done with Muppets, and the roller coaster, which really wasn't, how would you say, a brand new roller coaster, but it was a retheming of it, and that retheming now will resonate with a whole new um, group of kids, right? So I think that's really what we get out of it. We get out of it is that while there is some nostalgia, and while there are, elements that we anchor ourselves to, there's so much more that we're able to experience as we kind of navigate what the park is turning into. I think the difference, with these recent changes and why it hits a bit different is that in the past, you saw one, two rides, and it wasn't really attached to so much IP. Not in this way, not in a meaningfully like modernization sort of way, where you're not only adjusting a ride, you're adjusting a whole segment of the park, and now making the segment of that park full, let's say, Cars IP, right, with Piston Peak. They did some of that, let's say, if you go to Disneyland, the California um, adventure location. So you could see it there. You can see that exist there, and how that sort of takes over a whole segment of the park. And so, when they're doing it, when Magic Kingdom is changing it, it's really different. It's the new Fantasyland, Tomorrowland layered over itself three times, but so the park isn't allergic to change, but at the same time, the park that we're seeing is different. And so the way it looks is, back in 1971, and if I was looking through some of the videos, I was chopping up the video for the short. There's video of 1971, and you see it, and it's all Americana, right? You got Mark Twain, you got the Frontier, you got the riverboats, you got the railroad loop. It was all of America, so to say, injected within that 1971 park, and it felt good, it felt right, but at the same time, as time has passed, there's been such rich stories that Disney has been able to implement and inject within its park. And so, as part of that new spine, they started implementing now what we see with this IP, like Tron, Tiana, Cars, Villains. And so I think we're fortunate in that that's available. It's categorical change. It's not incremental as it has historically been, and so we're in that position where we can fully immerse ourselves in that, and take advantage of it. The funny thing is that it hasn't only just been, IP as it relates to, let's say, rides, but more so as it relates to everything. You have the parades that shift and change relative to these new characters being introduced into the parks. You have food that now is part of the storytelling. And so, when we kind of consider refreshes, with what a park and what the park historically look like and what this is, it really is about adjusting and changing, what the park is. And that direction, I think, is a favorable one for us and for the kids and for the growth of all the experiences that we're now able to have. I would even say that it's probably best, as we're sort of exploring all of this, for us to consider, the different experiences that you can have in a park that are not singular to a ride. go into the park and check out the food and make it a culinary day at at the park. And I know that that's done with Epcot, the Food and Wine Festival. But sometimes it's good to have, let's say, missions, right? And this day I'll go into the park for this mission, and that day I'll go into the park for a different mission. It changes the way that you perceive the park and the way that you see the story being told and how it's unfolding. And so it is probably best, that as you consider, what your experience, what your trip is going to look like, that definitely don't plan around the memory. Those are good to have. But plan around what you see starting to unfold and what's taking shape. Look at a little bit of YouTube. Look at what the tour guides say. Take a look at, what the new experiences look like, by visiting the website at the Disney World website or the Disneyland website, and get a feeling for what it's going to look like. You're going to need to plan. It's not going to look like it's historically been. In the past, you could just show up at the park, it felt, and just kind of wing it and have an experience relative to just showing up. But I think as the parks get fuller and it feels a little bit more compressed as you go into the park, it really is, you know, needing for you to acquaint yourself with the technology, with the Disney Experience app, looking through where things are at. Sometimes you're hopping around the park too. It's not like it once was, right? Where you could go in a circle and you start at your right, everyone goes to the right, and then, work your way, around the parks. Albeit, I know some of you go towards the left because that's a smart route. Everyone else is going through the right if you can make it happen. Or I guess hitting up Fantasyland first, that way you can get the very busy rides out of the way before it gets too busy. But yeah, you see, it takes technique and tactic, and you feel like you're a travel planner by the time that you're done and sort of considering what your trip is going to look like. And it doesn't feel like, as I go back into the 90s and I look at what those trips look like, they were definitely a little bit more freeform, to say the least. But that's not bad. There are, let's say, more digestible elements, to this experience. And I think that we want more as well as consumers out of the experience. We pay more, so we want more. And as part of wanting more, it does require setting a plan for yourself and sort of determining what it is that you want to take out of the trip. And knowing that, what it is that you get out of it and what your kids will get out of it isn't going to be the same. And I think that's probably why Disney could be the best experience for a lot of people, and yet you'd be surprised that it isn't the best experience for other people. And sometimes it falls down to the expectations that are set are either unrealistic, or their expectations that aren't framed around the planning aspect. There hasn't been enough planning to make certain that everything unfolds in the way that you're expecting it to. And so, yeah, so you plan around what's open and reliable. You set expectations that are realistic. You understand that you're not going to get the full everything, that is there is going to be there for you and available, unless you stay about a month, maybe, and you get lucky in that nothing's under construction, but very unlikely. So enjoy what you have while you have it. Enjoy the classic rides while they're still there. Experience it with the people that you love. Experiences and cherish them because they may not look that way. Continue understanding that it's really about the trajectory, not the headlines. That 10 years from now, a kid walking through Magic Kingdom is going to have a very different experience from a kid walking into Magic Kingdom in 2027 and going to what will then be like Piston Park, Piston Peak. Now, Piston Peak by then is, about a decade old, a different experience, and so I would say that the nice thing about it is that we've had certain rides for as long as we've had them. We've had certain experiences for as long as we had them, but, memory is formative. they'll have a memory of a different park. You'll have a memory that grows and builds upon other memories, and it's not a loss. It's just a change. It's a shift in expectations that we need as we consider the park. My short was meant to kind of talk through what the changes look like for rides, what it the park is looking like, and to just point out that it isn't a small or incremental change, that it does sort of share with the audiences, with the guest, what direction the parks are headed in, what the parks are going to look like. And it's just like we've seen with all the rebranding from animated movies and the sequeling of animated movies, and now we have the live version of the animated movies. They're evolving, changing. They make the most out of what's worked. They take the framing like they've done with the Muppets, and well, really the Rock and Roller Coaster, and now put the Muppets overlay on top of it. They've built upon the nostalgia quite a bit, but they understand that with all the new IP, that's available, that's something that needs to get capitalized on. And I think it's great to see the movies come to life, the characters come to life, to see the stories come to life in so many different ways within the parks, and now we got the opportunity to take advantage of it. But I think what I leave you with is definitely don't plan, your experience around your memory. Everything's changed in a way that's so different that the next couple of years that you plan, they really do need some research. They need some understanding of the technology. There'll be tiered and nuanced elements to that technology. So that way, if you want to experience it a little faster, you got to get, a lightning lane or a um, pass lightning lane, or you got to pay for the ride itself. Who knows what they'll call it? What the Genie Plus looks like with the evolution of all these different things, all these different nuances. If you want the best experience possible, you have to pay and plan, for that experience. And so that's what I try and get at with the shorts. I try and keep them short so that way you can get little snippets of what it is that's important, so that way you can have the best experiences possible, especially when you go to theme parks and when you're trying to make the most out of those moments with your loved ones.